Sonic
Lab
TV.
Today we're going to look at the new Mackie VLZ3 mixer. The one we're looking at today is the 1202 VLZ3. It's a new form factor for the sort of compact Mackie compact VLZ series. You notice it's got nice curvy edges, not so much the sharp lines of the original VLZ and VLZ Pro. It weighs a ton. I have to say, this thing is massively heavy, so I don't know whether that's just because it's really good quality or because it's just they put a brick inside it, but I suspect it's because they've actually given it a decent power supply and some quality components. Although it is heavy, one of the really nice additions to this is it's got this little sort of carrying handle, which is a great improvement over previous models. These new preamps, as you can see, the XDR2. Now, Mackie say they've spent over $250,000 researching in the R&D of these, and they've increased the headroom and the dynamic range enormously, and they seem to be singing it from the rooftops. From what I understand, they're significantly better than the XDRs, which you found on the VLZ Pro, but they're not quite as high-end as the Onyx series mic preamps, which do sound incredibly good. They say that they started with a blank paper and they wanted to replicate the kind of quality of boutique mic preamps, which would be sort of $1,000 to $2,000 per channel. That's quite some doing. Now, I didn't know this, but just in case you're wondering, Mackie have also spent quite a lot of design time working out a fix for something called hot patching. Now, hot patching is something I didn't know about, but apparently when you've got phantom power across mic channels and you're patching on the patch bay, or you're hot patching while the phantom power's on, so plugging mics in and out, you get a momentary short on the pins, which what that does, it can, over time, it can degrade the components within the mic amp, and it's called the hot patching problem. And apparently in some much older consoles that have had this continual repatching, it can degrade the components to such a point that the actual mic amps completely croak. Now, for those who are wondering, Mackie have addressed this in the design of the XDR2 mic amp, so if that's ever been a problem for you, worry no more. So what do you get with the 1202 VLZ3? Well, unsurprisingly, 12 channels. Now, the first 4 feature Mackie's XDR2 mic preamps. You also get on these channels a 75Hz high-pass filter, switchable. At minimum gain, these preamps can take plus 15 dB of signal, but you can crank it right around to get a full 45 dB of extra gain if you need it. 2 auxiliaries, 1 and 2. Then you've also got Mackie's standard EQ. Now, for those who aren't familiar with it, starting at the bottom, you get an 80Hz shelf, a 2.5K mid, and a 12 kHz shelf. Now, these EQs sound an awful lot better than they used to. When Mackie first came out with the 8 buses, the EQ on them was absolutely shocking. I mean, it sounded awful. I mean, that's the one part they didn't get right. And so subsequently, you know, I remember just using them for cut when I used to have an 8 bus. But this EQ here sounds a whole lot more musical, and they have invested in a great deal of time and money in the engineering of these, so you won't be disappointed. I mean, obviously they're very basic, but I think you'll find you'll be able to sculpt the sound quite well with them. Moving down the channel, you get pan control, and the standard mute alt bus arrangement that Mackie have really pioneered. That effectively means that when you mute the channel, it takes it out of the stereo bus but makes it present at an alternative bus. While we're looking at the mute button area, it's a real shame that down here they didn't manage to squeeze just a little LED that may give signal present, or more importantly, when you switch the mute on, it's nice to have a status LED. Now, you may not think this is that important, but when you're looking at a mixer, suddenly which ones of those are switched off? You just can't tell very easily, and specifically maybe in a low light situation you wouldn't really easily be able to tell which channel was on and off. So that's really the only criticism I've got. However, never fear, the LEDs are present on the versions with the faders. That's the 1402, 1642 and 1604, so you will get that if you need it on the other models. Obviously on a desk of this size we're not getting faders. These are rotary pots. There's no centre dent on the Unity like there used to be, but that's probably good because it means that you're going to get, if you do need to do a fade, it's going to be glitch free. And you've also got your solo button linked to Mackie's world famous Rude Solo light, which is a big red flashing light. The second 4 channels are stereo channels, line level stereo channels, and you can go in mono if you just use the left hand side, so you can use them as mono line line mixes if you want. The one thing I was a bit disappointed about was there's no +4 -10 level switch, which is kind of useful. I know on the Behringer that I've got, which is just a basic Xenix, although it doesn't have certain things that this does. One thing it does have is the level switch on the stereo inputs, which is just kind of useful. So you go +4 -10, gives you a bit more flexibility. Although the headroom on this desk will allow you to be able to accept those levels quite easily. Other ins and outs, you also get 2 stereo returns, auxiliary returns, which are controllable here on these knobs. Now these do have a unity centre dent because you're not likely to want to fade them. You've also got the ability to feed auxiliary return 2 into the aux 1 bus, so you could have a more complex mix if you so desired. Onto the master section, level control. Master section, nice good chunky LEDs that we've come to know and love from Mackie. You've got various monitoring configurations. What you can do is obviously you can monitor the main mix there, you can monitor the alt bus 3 and 4 and the tape, and all of these are switchable, so you can monitor all of them at the same time or individual ones. It's, you know, an usual flexible thing. The other thing you can also do is take the alt bus and route that to the main mix, so that gives you an extra bit of flexibility. The one thing that was a bit strange about this is this knob here controls the level of the alt bus and also the control room, so they are tied together, so that's the one compromise you've got there. Starting off at the power end of things, we've got the IEC connector and a switchable power supply which goes from 100 volts, 120 and 240. 240 obviously is where I'm in the UK, so that's where I've got it set. Individual switching for phantom power and main power. Master outputs on XLR, these are also mirrored here on jacks. You can set the level here. You can see this little switch, there's a recessed switch here, which allows you to run these outputs at +4, which is standard line level, or take it right back to more of a mic level, so you can feed it into a variety of sources. Nice little touch. Control room outputs, alt bus outputs, and the standard 4 insert points for the first 4 channels. These are pre-fader, pre-EQ, tip send, ring return, and as always, these can be wired up to be direct outputs if you so desire from your first 4 channels to give you a little extra if you're doing some recording. Other inputs and outputs on the top panel, you've got your tape input and output, aux 1 and 2, all the usual connectivity. You've also got your headphone out, which doesn't have a separate level. That's fed from the main monitor feed, so you can't do much with that if you wanted to. Nice little feature on the auxiliaries, you can switch auxiliary 1 to be pre or post. Now this is quite useful if you're working with, if you want 2 effect sends, then, you know, and you don't need a monitor send in a live situation, it doesn't need to be pre-fade, quite handy. One thing that's worth noting though, if you switch it to post fade and you've got the channel muted going to alt bus 3 and 4, there's no send, so it actually mutes the master send as well, which, I don't know, I guess it depends, you know, some people might want it one way, the other people another, and I'm sure Mackie have probably done enough research to figure out this was the best way to do it. Okay, so that's the hardware. So how does it sound? I've got my Behringer C1 large diaphragm condenser mic here, just plugged straight into the Mackie. If you just have a look, it's going in straight in, no high pass filter, no EQ. I'm just going to start talking into this directly now. So this is without the high pass filter in. You can, I don't know if you'll be able to hear that once it's encoded, but I'll just tweak the EQs here, a bit of top end on it. As you can see, it's kind of adding quite a lot there. Roll it off again, leave it flat there. 2.5k mid gives you quite a poke there, can also cut it down a bit, and let's put a bit of bottom end on it. You can see that I'm beginning to sound a bit woolly now, but gives you a rough idea of what it sounds like. Just pop the solo in there. You can see that it's nice and bright, the LED there, and no problem seeing the Rouge solo. The solo is pre-fade listen, so the pan and the fader on the channel make no difference to what you're hearing. You're just hearing a direct solo bus, post gain, post EQ, and that's monitored in the headphones. It has to be said, you know, compact mixers, generally people sort of think, oh, I'll just get the cheapest one on the market, it's not going to be doing much. But when you plug something like this Mackie VLZ3 in, you do notice a difference in the quality, and the amount of extra input they put into the design of the preamps and the extra headroom and the quality of the power supply and the electronics and the connectors, it all starts to mount up, and you do definitely hear the difference. So I would say if sound is important to you and you're going to maybe driving some nice microphones, you're going to be using it to get some good, you know, you might have different quality microphones like condensers, dynamics, ribbons. The preamps on the VLZ3 series are going to do them justice, and they're going to sound a lot better. The 1202 pictured here is $389.99. That's US dollars. If you want to buy it in UK pounds, that's £239. You can get a 1402, which features 6 mic preamps. That's $519.99 US dollars, or 319 UK pounds. If you want 12 mic channels, that will be the 1642 you're after. That's also got 4 subgroups. That'll be $779.99 US dollars, or 479 UK pounds. And if you're after 16 mic preamps, that's the 1604 that you'll be wanting, and that comes in at $1,099.99, or 699 UK pounds.